back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hey guys, so I'm here today to do a pretty exciting update video, I think. I'm going to tell you about all the series that I have either finished completely or caught up with this year. So I'm only including series where I've at least read 2 or more of the books, because obviously there are so many series where I've just read the first, and where I'm completely caught up or it's a finished series. So they're not really in any particular order. These are just all the ones that I finished this year. So let's get started. One of the series that I finished is The Glamorous Histories, which is by Mary Robinette Kowal. This is a 5-book series, and I read, I think, the last 2 or maybe even the last 3 this year. Definitely the last 2. Really enjoyable series, definitely a Regency inspired one, and fantasy of manners, and it's a lot of fun if you like that sort of thing. Next series I finished is the Greatcoat series by Sebastien de Castell. I loved this series so much. It was such good fun, sword and sorcery, really enjoyable fantasy, kind of in the vein of like the Three Musketeers, but with a bit of magic, only a little bit mind you. But yeah, really, really fun and very much an enjoyable sort of sword and sorcery series. The next one I finished is the Fitz and the Fool series, which also is part of the Realm of the Eldlings series by Robin Hobb. I read the final one in this and finished up the trilogy and loved it. This is one of my favourite series ever. Another one that I finished is the Memoirs of Lady Trent series, which is by Mary Brennan. I love this series so much. It's all about like female power and studying science and dragons. It's just great. It's so much fun and I would highly recommend it. And that one has 5 books, but I think I only read the 5th book this year and finished it up. Another series that I finished reading this year is Memory, Sorrow and Thorn, which is by Tad Williams. I'd read the 1st book last year, but not the rest of them. So I finished that one up. There are 3 books in that series, although one of them has been split into 2 parts, so technically 4 books, but 3 parts, however you want to call it. Anyway, I finished that. It's a very classic fantasy series and one I definitely would recommend if you're into classic fantasy. However, he has just started a new series, of which I have read the 1st because that's the only one out, and I love that one more. So I think he's definitely one to watch when the 2nd one in that series comes out. Another series I finished this year because of a new release is The Broken Earth, and that's by N.K. Jemisin. I absolutely love this series. Again, it's a really interesting blend of science fiction and fantasy in this one, and some absolutely wonderful female characters are included, so it's well worth reading. It's an epic fantasy, really cool blend of sci-fi and fantasy in this one. Another series which I finished this year was the Demon Cycle series by Peter V. Brett. I'm really sad I finished this one because it's one of my all-time favourite series. I absolutely loved the whole thing, and this one was no exception. It was wonderful. This is set in a world that I adore, and it's proper gritty fantasy, but so fun as well. So much magic and I love it, so would highly recommend that too. A few more series that I actually finished. The Split World series, which is a 5-book series by Emma Newman. Loved this series so much. In fact, I read the whole series this year and I think it is brilliant, and it is one of the best series ever that I've read. Emma Newman is solidly a favourite of mine now after this, and I would highly recommend checking her out. Another one I finished up is The World of the Five Gods, which is a trilogy sort of companion novels by Louise McMaster Bujold. These were my first Bujold books, and I'm really happy I've sort of started on her backlist because she's got a lot of titles out and she's a great writer, so I certainly want to read more of her work in the coming year. I finished up the Riddle Master series, which is by Patricia A. McKillop. This was one of my first McKillop reads, and I think it was a bit of a mixed bag for me. In fact, I didn't really end up liking it that much. But I definitely still want to read some of her other books because I did like one of her short story collections, I think it was, that I read. So I'm hopeful that I'll like her other novels a bit more. Now on to some of the series that I have caught up with but not finished because they are ongoing, so there will be more books coming out in the future at some point. The first of those is The Song of the Shattered Sands, which is by Bradley Beaulieu. I read the 2nd book this year and very much enjoyed it. It's a desert-based fantasy series and one that has a brilliant kick-ass lead character. Another one who I think is just brilliant is the Jodie Taylor Chronicles of St. Mary's series, which is a think, a 9-book series. 8 are the main series and then 1 is a companion. There are loads of novellas, loads of books, and it's brilliant. It follows a time-travelling crew who can go back in history and study it. They are historians, they are witty, funny, British, and very, very hilarious, and well worth checking out if you haven't already. I read nearly the whole series this year. I think I read about 7 of them this year, so I love this series so much. I've also caught up on the Wayward Children series, which is a collection of novellas, all sort of companion novels by Seanan McGuire. The 3rd one comes out in January, although I've already read it, and I love this series. Like, the first book I didn't love as much as the 2nd and 3rd, but the 2nd book is my favourite and the 3rd is great too. So I love this series. It's about children who travel through portals to other worlds and then come back sort of damaged, and they end up having to explore a lot more than most children do about themselves, and it's wonderful. Another one that I caught up with is the Heartstrikers series by Rachel Aaron. This is an urban fantasy series and it's one that I absolutely love. It's so fun. It's about a young dragon who's really nice, which is quite unusual for dragons, and therefore he gets picked on by his family and even outed from the family. So he ends up spending time with a mage and they get into all sorts of adventures together, including finding ghosts and trapping them, and it all becomes very, very epic. The last book in that series at the moment is the 4th and I absolutely loved it. Another series that I am so eagerly anticipating the 3rd one for is the Dandelion Dynasty series by Ken Liu. I love this series. In fact, the 2nd one in the series I have basically said is my favourite book of the year because it is. I love it. So yeah, Dandelion Dynasty, I've read book 1 and 2, cannot wait for book 3 to come out. It's gonna be brilliant. Another series I caught up with this year is the Dragon's Blade series by Michael R. Miller. There's currently 2 books in the series, but I know the 3rd one is due out next year. These covers are stunning. It's a series that is, again, quite a classic fantasy, but it has some twists on classic tropes, and it definitely has some more interesting weaving plot lines than classic fantasy often does. Really cool ideas about dragons and how they can be human form too, and a lot of fun to read. Another one that I caught up with is the Dragonlord series by John Hollins. There are currently 2 books in the series. Hopefully a 3rd will be out sometime soon because I adore this series so much. The 2nd one was even better than the 1st, and I don't know how that's possible because I adored the 1st. It's witty, it's snarky, it's silly, it's funny, it's great. It's everything I love in a sword and sorcery, and I could not recommend it more highly to you guys. Another series that I'm caught up on is the Legends of the First Empire series by Michael J. Sullivan. There are 2 books out now, and I've read the 2nd one this year, and I really enjoyed it. I felt like it was stronger than the 1st one in this series, and I'm really hopeful to see where the series is going to go. It's again quite a classic fantasy, but again has twists on the tropes, and I absolutely love Michael J. Sullivan's writing style. He is fantastic, so definitely worth picking up. Speaking of Michael J. Sullivan, another series of his that I'm caught up with is the Rieria Chronicles. He self-published the 4th one this year, and I read it and I loved it, and I'm super duper excited for more of you to read it in the new year when it sort of officially comes out. Yeah, it's such a good series, and this book was no exception. It was brilliant sword and sorcery fun again, with Royce and Hadrian, 2 of my favourite ever characters. Another series that I am caught up on is the Stormlight Archive series. I recently read Oathbringer, which is the 3rd one. Huge tome. In fact, it is my longest book of the year so far, I think. Very intrigued to see where we're going as we're approaching the middle point. I mean, approaching is a loose term because there are supposed to be 10. The next one will be book 4. But as we get there, I'm intrigued to see where it goes. The Broken Stone Chronicles, which is by Damien Black. I have currently read the 1st one in the series and I'm quite close to the end of the 2nd, so I'm gonna say that I'll finish it before the end of the year, which I think I will. I'm loving it. I love the 1st one. It was my winner for SBFBO. Really excited to sort of see how it does with some of the other judges. I hope it does well. And yeah, loved this one so much, so could not more highly recommend it. And then finally, the last series at the moment is the Tenserate series, which is by Jai Yang, and this is a Silk Punk collection of 2 novellas currently, but it will have 2 more coming out. And I've just finished reading these 2 and loved them. And I've done a full review of this and pretty much all of the others I've spoken about in this video on my channel, so if you want to find them you can. Thank you all so much for watching. Do let me know in the comments below what series you've caught up with this year, or if you think there are any other series that I should catch up with, do let me know that as well. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in my next video. Bye guys!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me.